Hello everyone, Zellerant here, and for today's video on Girls Frontline 2, we're going to be talking about the upcoming T-Doll that was announced, which is Nikita. We're kind of go through her kit fairly quickly since I've already covered it in the past when she came out on the CN side. Now, I'll have a link to that in the description if you want to see me go over it more in depth. One nice thing about this video is we're going to kind of take a look at how she continues to hold value through time on the CN side, as we have a lot more knowledge with upcoming units, and whether or not she's still going to be relevant and good for us on the global side. And so with that, let's just kind of go ahead and get into it. One of the big things with Nikita is that she has her pet here, which is Kulik, who she can summon with her skill 1. And so that's kind of the big thing with her kit, especially at V0, is that her skill 1 and skill 2 both have 1-turn cooldowns, no confectance index costs. So how you're going to play her is you basically, at least at V0, it changes if you get dupes. But at V0, you basically alternate between both these skills. The first one is summons Kulik, as well as applying a debuff on the enemy called Guilt. Now this debuff just lets you do more damage from Hydro, but it also has some play with her ultimate as well, which we'll take a look at. But you're basically alternating between both of these, summoning Kulik and then going into here, which then has you applies Guilt as well, but then you also do extra command, which then allows you to go into her ultimate, which has a confectance index cost of 3, which you can get in that alternating because you get confectance index from this skill, as well as if you have Springfield, which you absolutely should, especially if you have her at V1, you can get confectance index from that as well to help manage her ult. And so that's basically the goal. V0, alternating back and forth. You're doing her ultimate. Her ultimate does a bunch of damage. And if they have Guilt, which both skill 1 and skill 2 put Guilt on them, she'll do an additional attack on top of that. And the more confectance index she has over 3, it will consume all of it and do an additional 5%. That's kind of the core of how you're going to play her. Now, when it comes to her passive, now, if Kulik is present, she gains Insight. We have that with all the sniper units. And then before Kulik activates his skill, both gains 1 stack of clue. And on that clue is it increases damage outside of one's turn, which they both do. They both have outside of turn type attacks. So you have that gets buffed on there. But the big thing is when Kulik, her pet, counterattacks, which basically he does whenever an enemy within 3 tiles of him does an attack, then Nikita will also counterattack with her ultimate, which does a big chunk of damage. So that's where you can really start racking up the damage, just constantly hitting them. Very good on the single target damage. So Gunsmoke Frontline Nikita is very good in that aspect. And like I said, if you have Guilt on them, which skill 1 and skill 2 does, it increases, you basically get an additional attack on that on top of that first attack, and then remove Guilt. And both skills add it, so you're going to be constantly getting that extra attack there. And then that's pretty much it when it comes to the entire kit. Just summon him, have him within range of the boss. Boss does attacks, he counterattacks, she counterattacks alongside him with their ultimate. They'll have Guilt on him, she'll do an additional attack. When you do skill 2, you put Guilt on him, does a big amount of damage. Then you roll back into her ultimate after extra command, and then attack again. And that's kind of your standard rotation. Lots and lots of damage, fairly straightforward. You have the extra unit with Kulik to meet the conditions for having 6 units on the field that we've seen with a lot of Gunsmoke Frontlines. So Papa Shah is pretty much null and void with her in that aspect. You're never pretty much going to want to bring Papa Shah. I mean, worst case, you borrow Nikita. Now, I don't know how important that's going to be when it comes to the synergies of just doing outright more damage when it comes to the teams. But overall, pretty good right there. Now, when it comes to the priorities of the dupes, she is one that does not need dupes, but she does get very, very good as you get dupes. One of the things I will say when it comes to pulling dupes for her is if you haven't V6'd Springfield, all your dupe investments should go into Springfield when she reruns before investing in her. Springfields just are that good that Nikita does great at V0, and you have Tololo that does really good with Springfield V1. She does really good with Springfield V1, and then as you get more dupes on Springfield starts doing really good damage as she gets dupes. And so you're going to get more bang for your buck out of Springfield investment than Nikita when it comes to the Hydro team. And Nikita will just outright do more damage too, with a stronger Springfield being the support for Hydro. And so, but when you come if you've already maxed out your Springfield and you really want to invest in Hydro, the breakpoints are V1, V3, and V6. V1's basically going to allow her to spam her V2, which her V2, and by being able to do that, it's basically V2 ultimate every single turn versus alternating skill 1 and skill 2, unless you need to summon Kulik again for some reason. And then V3 increases the number of counterattacks, so now Kulik can do more counterattacks, which, like it says here, she does her ultimate attack multiple times per round. And so more damage, and this one it says significantly boosts her damage because she's getting another ultimate alongside that counterattack. And then V6 makes it so guilt is not consumed. So, as you know with these, you get guilt from these, and then you're going to use your ultimate, and it removes guilt. And so, the second attack, so you do her first attack, then you counterattack. One of these attacks, guilt's not going to be on there because you're consuming guilt. So you're not going to get that second attack normally. V6 removes that, meaning now once guilt is on them, you're just constantly getting those extra attacks on her ultimate. And then he's counterattacking more than once. So she's doing her ultimate, like, I don't even know, like 3 or 4 times a turn. And it's a significant damage increase. So, like it says here, all righteous verdicts will deal additional attacks instead of only the first one, which then increases damage based on Confectant's Index consumed, which Springfield is very good at giving. Remember, that's one of the big things Tololo wants. And what we've seen when she originally came out, you can balance putting that buff on Tololo and Nikita from Springfield. So both Tololo's getting her 3 attacks per turn, and Nikita's also getting a good chunk of Confectant's Index to get a good chunk of extra damage herself. And so they just work really, really good together. It's going to basically be the bread and butter of mono for us for quite a bit on the global side. And so when it comes to the teams, you're going to see that right now you have these 3, and nothing really changes other than you bring these 3, and then you have Klukai, and you can pair either with Iridia or Mishti in the dual Corrosion Hydro team is kind of being the meta team right now. The higher damage ones, from what I've seen, is Iridia and Klukai, but Mishti works just fine in that group. Realistically, the biggest thing you're doing is just have them as your extra big damage dealers. Also, you get defense down on the boss. So really good outright secondary team to pair along Hydro. And that doesn't change for quite a long time. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Very straightforward on her. A very nice kit. I really like the kit. Definitely someone I'll be pulling for. Not pulling for dupes on her though. I've already basically... She does great at V0. There is actually a negative to being able to do her skill 2 multiple times, which is that extra turn makes turn-based debuffs end quicker, which is kind of a negative. They really need to change that because that actually gives you a detriment to certain skills. But overall, very good kit. I'd say for most people, you've probably already heavily invested in Hydro with Springfield. Tololo's a standard unit, and she just makes them outright better. And like I said, even though the meta team includes hybrid with Corrosion, which is Iridia, Klukai, like I said, they're just like Corrosion. You can throw them in any team, realistically. You can bring your favorite units. They're going to do great damage. They don't need the other damage dealers to be great. So these 3 units, just throw anyone. You can put them in the Burn team, or you can put them in the Ice team. It don't matter. They'll all work quite well together. And that's pretty much for her. We have... When it comes to the weapons, this is one big thing that I've seen a lot of questions on is they say, like, Bittersweet, so Macchiato's sniper is better than her own. Now, I haven't actually done the math on it, and I haven't really looked at it when it comes to her dupes. I'm guessing when you get more dupes of her, because this is more dealing with, like, V0. As you get more dupes, this one's going to get better because you have Damp 1 that it applies, but now your her own guns makes the entity summon and damage dealt by ultimate increase. Well, as you can see, she's going to do her ultimate more often, and her entity is going to counterattack more often with more dupes. So hers will get more, her weapon gets more value as you get more dupes. Else, there's just not enough damage in those two because you're alternating through skill 1 and skill 2 more often. That Bittersweet Caramel takes more precedence because it has the ignore target defense. And if for some reason you pair them, with an ice team. So if you want to bring in, say, any ice member, like you want to bring in a Macchiato, which if you bring in a Macchiato, you might want to give her own weapon. But if you bring in anybody who can put ice debuffs on them, she can get a 20 defense ignore with Macchiato. So you can get this in full effect up here just by having an ice person putting an ice debuff on the boss. And I think there's other ways to do it as well. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but as long as you get an ice debuff on the boss, boom, you have it right there. And then increases freeze damage dealt by, she doesn't do freeze damage, so you don't get to take advantage of this. But then again, for every, and then at 1 dupe, 4 instances of damage dealt outside of own turn, increases damage dealt by a next active attack by whatever. They do a lot of attacks outside of their own turn. So the only thing she doesn't really get to take advantage of, or can't, is this first little chunk here, which is a 10% damage increase, which is why this gun's so good for her. And that's why I would not pull her weapon if you've got Macchiatos. I think a lot of people have Macchiatos because she was our second, I believe, banner unit. A lot of people pulled for Macchiato V1 and her weapon just to kind of give you that good start, because we had Suomi right at the beginning as well. So if you already have this weapon, don't even worry about hers. And so that's pretty much it. That is Nikita. Very good unit coming out. I will be streaming my polls for her when she comes out. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.